changing your proportions. You must have watched our last podcast.
Blocks are a great tool.
They are. You can really get your stepping strength.
You get much longer legs.
Mm-hmm.
You use them just like your mom.
Welcome to our podcast. So today,
Welcome. My name's Lauren,
I'm Emily.
and we are breaking down a vinyasa.
You probably hear that word a million times in a vinyasa yoga class, and we don't ever want to assume that you know what it means, but even more, there's lots of ways to do a vinyasa. Even though the word vinyasa really means breath, it has become a term used to describe how we connect our poses in a vinyasa class. So, you know, at any given time in class, the reset part of class may be a high plank, low plank, up dog, down dog, which we call taking a vinyasa.
It's kind of like the connector, the link between, usually we use it between rounds, like side to side, and then between different rounds of a flow, or you can use it to build heat. Adding it in the middle of a flow is less common, at least in our studio, but different ways to use it.
And it can build a lot of shoulder strength and also move you through spinal flexion, spinal extension when it's done properly. And if you don't know how to move through it properly, sometimes the shoulders can end up not getting much variety of movement. So that's one of the things we wanted to address, is how to take care of your shoulders, especially when you're doing a lot of vinyasas, like we did a vinyasa yoga class. So, yeah, get started. Do you want to, let's show them a vinyasa.
Great.
Okay, how about first you teach me through one?
Okay.
And then I'll cue you through. Yeah.
Would you like blocks
I'll go without blocks for this
for this
first
one? And excuse me, sir, we're going to get you out of the shot so that they can really see what Emily's doing. So, and I'll teach it as we would just a traditional, all right, off you go, vinyasa. So, and again, we're linking the breath with the movement so that you can get in tune with your breath as well and really get into the body. So it would be inhale, high to the toes. Exhale, bend the knees, look forward, travel to the top of the mat. So that can be a hop, a step, a tiptoe. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, Tadasana, tall mountain, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands. So this is your vinyasa, your high to low plank. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. So that was, as I cued it, a full sun A. However, the high plank to low plank, upward facing dog, there she goes, to downward facing dog. That little link is your vinyasa. So now we can, should we just roll through it kind of and show what's happening in the shoulders? And
Yeah, and the issues that you run into are just anytime you repeat something a lot, it's prone to get sloppy, especially as you get tired throughout a class. Also, when you're in a hurry, you're kind of just going through flowing, because it does provide this nice flowy element. Sometimes you lose sight of what's actually going on, and it can fall into patterns of any discipline, any kind of movement, and vinyasas are no different. So,
but I think one of the things that we see a lot that we were talking about earlier is that these are actually separate poses. So what we see a lot is what we jokingly call like the chat up dog. So it's kind of a combined chaturanga straight into the up dog. So kind of just like a dip forward and then a swoop up. And here, that causes you, like I'm going to say, see how her shoulders are dipping forward so much more? She's got a lot of pressure in the front of the shoulders, and she's more rounded here, as opposed to, so as opposed to chest forward, elbow straight back, and watch what her shoulder blades do as she goes into her chaturanga. So now her chest is open, shoulder blades are guiding down the back, which sets her up for her upward facing dog. Oh, we're getting an assist.
Yes, thank you.
So now you see where her shoulder blades are pulling back and down, shoulders rolling back. So it gets you out of that kind of forward. We do a lot of forward folding. That's not for you. So this kind of sets you up for a little bit more broadening and shoulder stability too.
Right, and so some of the issues also come up because it takes a tremendous amount of strength and stability to control the lowering down, and I think we kind of take for granted that you can make that motion happen without using necessarily the right muscles, but you may sacrifice the front of your shoulder doing it, and so it is a wonderful thing to modify that lowering down part so that you can build the strength up to where you can control it, and it feels like that up dog transition is a break for the shoulders instead of just a continuation of this same forward shoulder position.
Did you see how her shoulders were so much more forward?
I'm in the up dog shape. but my shoulders are, my upper arm bone is internally rotated in the socket
Here.
because I never went through that stage where I rolled the shoulder head back.
So see how much more space she has across the chest just by setting it up from the chaturanga to start.
And it's a lot more core engagement on my part in this position as well. Like I have to engage the front of my body to control that movement as well.
Right, which if you'll notice too, as she was demoing, she had her knees down, so that's the first thing we can mention as an option.
So if you were
Dominoes.
if you were coming forward to your high plank, one thing I could do is just put my knees down, which is still a lot of work in my plank.
Because see,
My
my hips
glutes
are
are on. I get a
so
little more hip extension, and then as I lower down, I have more control because I don't have as much length to deal with. And then I can work on really rolling those shoulders back. So knees down is a great thing you can do. Another option is to lower all the way down to the belly. And if you really focus on slowing down the lowering process, it is a lot of time under tension. So but then once I'm down, I really roll those shoulders back and just feel myself up off the mat. That feels really good to me. If you watched our last podcast, I talked about how blocks under my hands really gives me more space in my up dog, and also honestly coming down to a lower position, I get a lot more opening in my chest, and I feel like I can control my spine more.
Do you feel like your back body is still activated too?
Oh yeah,
You're still
definitely.
squeezing and engaging everything.
Yeah,
through
so
the back body.
so an active up dog does not have to be thighs up. This is great, and it works better for me with blocks, honestly. We can look at LaurEm here in a minute, but don't think that coming all the way down and then either peeling up here or even taking a locust pose, if I want to feel a little more in my feet, my lower leg, and then I can still focus on the push to get back up. So control on the way down where you have access to work those shoulder blades is a big thing that we see lacking when we do these reps of vinyasas.
Yeah. And also it depends on what you're trying to work. If you're working on back body strength,
Yeah.
lowering down and taking the locust might be a better option than just trying to muscle through.
Right. Yeah, just to remind that back body to turn on. If you're focusing more on your push strength, you can also take a full push up at the bottom of the vinyasa. So like you could, from your high plank, I could do this knees down or not. I could lower all the way down and then take a full push up. And then I have the option to either lower halfway and take my up dog from there, or I could, do the full push-up. And then I could even come back to my hands and knees, take a cat-cow, and then downward facing dog. So again, great point about what you're trying to emphasize. And you make choices based on what your body needs. And that's where, sometimes having a private lesson or a little even in teacher training, we break down these things more particularly for individuals so that you have a range of things you can try.
Right.
Another one I like, and you can show us this, and also if you have some other favorites of your own, is forearm plank to Sphinx.
Oh yeah.
So like if wrists are an issue, I'll come get in just the corner here. So if sometimes we have students who, or wrists are tender, got something going on, and you still want to be able to do the flow and stay in the flow, I recommend when they come forward to high plank, just coming down to the forearms, really focus on strong, stable, core is engaged, glutes are on, and then controlled lower to the belly, Sphinx pose, pull the chest through, pick up the low belly, which to me, it's very similar to up dog. It's just not using my wrist or my full arm length. And then you can even push back up to forearm plank and then down dog.
And I like to tuck my toe for that transition. I like it a lot too. I like to tuck my toes, lift my knees up first. That gets me a little stronger through the lower body, and then turn the core on to lift up. Because that is a nice transition, but it also I feel like I like to break it down and really put the parts together to work the strength part of it. Ooh.
I mean, you can also come, like if you were coming through your forearm plank and then down to Sphinx, you could then go into Cobra from here, which is also quite nice, I think. Yeah, you could, and then just plant your hands, kind of gentle up dog or Cobra, and then down dog. So having options allows you to, listen to your body, honor your body, and what other activities you're doing too. If you've had a lot of one thing, maybe you need more of another.
And skipping the vinyasa entirely is also another great choice that people sometimes feel like they should take the vinyasa if it's offered, but maybe you've already done a class that day, or maybe you had a really hard one the day before, or maybe your shoulders are tender.
Maybe you did a bunch of push-ups in another workout.
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually won't serve you for the rest of the class. Leave it out. You can always, high plank and then just down dog. Or, like Em said earlier, upward facing dog. I mean, cow, cat, and then
just moving through the spine and the shoulder blades.
Another one that we didn't mention earlier, and I don't know, sometimes it just feels nice, is from your high plank, knees, and then chest, chin.
Ashtanga Pranam, a more traditional.
And then kind of rolling it back from there.
And that's not particularly easy, but for some people it helps them, slow it down. And let's do it again, if they'll think of now sliding those shoulder blades back, that's a lot, she's opening her chest, just like we did in our Cobra, and then peeling herself up. That helps her work with sliding the shoulder blades down, gliding them.
But it's almost like you're in puppy.
So you get more, more chest opening, collarbones open.
Bring that down. I mean, my hips are a little bit more forward, I think, feels like, from puppy, and obviously where your hands are and arms are, but it's the same, it's a deep back bend.
What do you think? Now he has snacks and stuff.
Yeah, and I'll show one more version from Awakening Yoga, my training with Patrick Beach and Harley Harps. And this is one that's it does help me with my shorter arms to feel more balanced in the vinyasa, and it emphasizes the push up a little more, but then also the sliding of the shoulder blades back, so that as you come into up dog, you really get that opening. So when they, again, this is from Awakening Yoga, and if you take the advanced sequencing module with me, I will give you those tools. It's part of our 300-hour training, but if I were coming from high plank, I would take a full push-up. So I'll really focus on the push-up. knees drop, forearms drop, and then I crawl myself forward, which reminds me a lot of that Ashtanga Pranam.
Yeah.
But I get a lot more
Seems
even
more accessible.
Yes. It's a little, when I've introduced it to people, a lot of people have a hard time with
The drop. There.
this pulling because they're not in the habit of gliding the shoulder. Like it requires you to learn to move your shoulder blades, which
Yeah, and I can, especially from this angle, I can really see yours like drawing back and down together.
So it kind of positions them really well for that next transition.
Do you feel like, and because it seems like you had more space
Way more.
with that one.
Yes, it feels more spacious. Now it does take me just a hair longer. So sometimes in a fast-paced vinyasa class, I just have to block everything out and do it that way if I want to do it that way. But it does, you catch up, it's fine. Again, if you'll start to pay attention to what you feel in your body and try these options, you'll probably find one that feels better. Or maybe you take one on, you try out an option and do it a lot during a class, see how you feel after class.
Yeah.
Same thing with using blocks. You could use blocks for an entire class and see if you feel a little more spacious.
And you could also, like, if you're working a chaturanga, for example, and you're like, I'm not really sure if I'm jumping into the shoulders or not, blocks are a great option too, just to have kind of as it's a point of reference almost, so you can set them at the top of your mat. Oh, thanks. And as you come forward and, about shoulder width apart from your plank, you can use them as like, okay, I'm here. I don't want to go farther than that kind of thing. And then use it to help kind of train you.
Yeah, and come down. Can you do it one more time? We're also looking, another thing you do is video yourself, and this is tough, but trying to create as close to a 90 degree. Yeah, so this would be like serratus has to work more, chest has to be stronger, shoulders have to be super strong. That's what I'm working towards. And some days it's just not there. But you feel how it forces you to use this, like think of flying that shoulder blade back and then push up. It's good. Yeah. Yeah, that's something to work towards. Gradually taking your hands a little further back, because if you can get these guys, these are your serratus and it really gives a lot of stability to your shoulders.
It's like those feather muscles that look like they're just, for those of you who are super jacked, they're like the feathery.
Yeah, little fingers or something wrapping right there.
Not to be confused with your intercostals, which are the muscles between the ribs.
Those are involved in breathing.
They are. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, but we just want to encourage y'all that taking different options in the vinyasa is not a sign of weakness. And when you get really comfortable with doing that, you can grow your practice tremendously. I know for a while I was doing the awakening yoga vinyasas all the time, which built a lot of shoulder strength for me, because doing the full negative, the full push-up every time is something that is, in a traditional vinyasa, you don't, especially if you rush the chaturanga to up dog transition, you don't get the push up part. And actually that pushing action is so helpful for arm balances in that bent arm position. Like you need that kind of pushing into the ground when you're doing crow pose, when you're doing Bujapidasana or, flying pigeon. All of those poses require you to keep pushing into the ground. And again, it is possible to do a vinyasa and really kind of just slide through that whole push up part. So that helped me, because even if you've been doing vinyasa a long time and you're strong, you can still get really sloppy and feel, I've gone through phases where I'm like, my chaturanga just doesn't feel that strong, and I kind of have to dial it back, slow it down. And that's another thing you can do is increase your time under tension, do a 5 count.
Lower.
And then a 5
push
count.
Back up.
Yeah.
And also you said something earlier too about in your up dog not having to have the thighs lifted, but for those of you who are wondering or curious, or maybe you weren't and now I'm thinking about it, in your up dog, you can keep the legs down, or you can also, you can get all your shoulders set, push into the tops of the feet, glutes are on, and then I've got a lot more.
Yeah, so going down first and then activating from the bottom up, is that what you're
well,
saying? Or?
Just in general. But yeah, that could be an option too. Like if you come all the way down to locust, for sure, pushing up, roll, like focusing on this, and then pushing into the ground, or, you know, upward facing dog. And then you're already kind of lifted. But again, not necessarily like a right wrong. It's just what are you trying to work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also don't forget to, when you're in that up dog, to engage your front body, your core. I feel like I've had a lot of students kind of randomly in classes say, oh, that cue to pull the belly button to the spine made my low back feel so much better. Mm-hmm. We kind of take it for granted as teachers, but it's something that I think we need to remind students more that, yeah, it's not just to bend the spine, it's to engage the back body, but support with the front body.
Right, because a lot, I mean, you hear people talking about, you know, don't lift with your back, lift with your legs, right? I mean, just, well, but I would say lift with your core too, like this, versus, well, I don't know, I think I do it automatically, but like, if I'm going to pick something up and I really try to not use my legs, I don't know if I can do it. You've all seen stuff anyway, but if you keep the core engagement, even if I'm talking about squats, but like keeping this all tight to protect the low back and then using your legs, but same idea that Em's talking about in the up dog, right? If I'm loosey-goosey in the core, sure, like I've got a hinge point in my back, but like I feel really hingy right here.
Now if I say engage,
we're directly in my belly.
Just button. So tight on your core.
Yeah, like that's way more stable. I'm working a lot harder too, but it creates more space and stability through the full core. Starting with your belly button.
Well, and on that topic too, forward folds, while we're at it, you know, a forward fold can be done very passively. You know, if I'm here, I could just, you know, fold myself down, and it could be all up here in some point in my back.
And see how she's more like rounded through here, and you tell me, but is it pulling kind of
a little
here?
bit. If I did this over and over, it would start to bother me. But my core is not on.
Right.
And there's multiple ways to do a forward fold. We'll get into that later, like bending the knees. But what I was thinking about with the core is, here, let's have you do a forward fold, and I'll actually
And see, using blocks.
demonstrate this. So this is a great way to get your entire body to participate in the forward fold. So I'm going to give her some resistance across her chest. And so now
I'm pushing.
Woo! Look at that. Look at those abs. Okay, so now forward fold.
But I have to bend my knees. I'm like squeezing my glutes and hammies to be able to help with the, oh, that feels nice.
And so if you think, you can even almost do it to yourself, but it's nice to have somebody do it to you. I have to use legs, hammies, core, everything's on so much more. And it feels different. Yes, and you are balancing. What is that?
Snacks.
Oh, it's a little
Snacks and dumbbells.
yeah, so again, in any pose, thinking about, can I get both parts of my body to, unless you're stretching passively, you know, and there's not meant to be engagement. And there are times, restorative yoga, where we're trying to support the muscles and not have them work. But typically, even in yin, you're trying to release a part, but there's other parts that need to stay on.
Right, to support.
So that part can relax. So all that to say, a little teaser, ways to get your core to turn on in repetitive poses. Yeah, good job. Good squat. Yeah, way to go. I wonder if our heads are cut off from the video. They are.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well. Here we are.